Welcome to the penultimate round of Grid Life here in 2025. We hit the West Coast in beautiful, sunny California, where WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca championship season is in full effect here at one of the most iconic racing venues anywhere in the world. And track time is as important now as it has been all throughout the season. Let's go learn a little bit more about one of the best racetracks in the country.
The magnificent Pacific coast of California.
The corner behind me here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca is one of the most famous corners on the planet. It's a four-story drop that everybody always talks about whenever you come here. There are some corners globally that are just recognized by name. Eau Rouge, 130R, Curva Grande, and the Corkscrew. But sometimes it's the corners that are less talked about that are even more impressive. The original configuration took drivers through a very fast downhill left kink at turn 1, which cut through to what is now turn 5. It was an incredibly fast sequence with a huge compression, and speeds climbed over 150 miles an hour before the left-hander after the bridge at turn 6. The original track was 1.9 miles in length, but in order to satisfy MotoGP's minimum track length requirements, they added about 4/10 of a mile, including Andretti hairpin turns 3, 4, and 5, bringing the total length of the track up to about 2.24 miles in 1988. This is turn 6. It doesn't have a name or the global recognition of the Corkscrew just up the hill. But what it does have is this huge compression here, this massive curb on the inside. It requires so much precision to get this just right. If you miss the apex by a foot, you're off by 20 feet at the exit. And if you get a little too tight to the apex, you hit this thing, this big nasty yellow curb, and this will send you for the ride of a lifetime here at Laguna Seca. The entrance to turn 6 is blind and incredibly fast under the bridge. And when you finally get to the corner, you hit the ground so hard in this compression as the banking falls away from you that the cars actually gouge the racetrack. There's lines drilled into the pavement here from cars slamming this lap after lap after lap. It's a true test of a car setup and a driver's bravery.
Over my shoulder, thousands of spectators are getting ready to watch the world's fastest sports cars as they blaze around this road course. 25 of the world's best drivers, 14,000 horsepower waiting to be let loose. The Laguna Seca Can-Am race is about to get underway.
2.24 miles around here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Kyle Heyer joined by Jacob Gettens. And Jacob, this racetrack is historic. It hasn't always looked exactly like this, as we just saw. It was a little shorter back in the day, but 1988, what we now know as WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca reached its final form. 11
thought, and that little bit of a history lesson was greatly appreciated. Super cool to see how fast it could have been and once was. Be interesting to see if we could ever do that again.
Yeah, really excited to show you the scenes and sights from around here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. That uphill climb towards turns 5 and 6, and then you head up through Ray Hall straight down into the Corkscrew, a 4-story drop that is one of the top 5 most recognizable corners in motorsports globally. Then down through Rainy Curve to turn 10 and then 11, and then back around to complete a lap here at Laguna Seca. So this place is absolutely spectacular, and of course, a lot of drivers have driven across the country to be here this weekend, Jacob. So there's about a dozen or so TrackBattle competitors and a handful of IBOC GLTC and Rush Series competitors that have also made this maybe often a once-in-a-lifetime journey.
Yeah, and driving here specifically in the cars that they're racing in too, which is absolutely wild.
And we're coming off of a round at Autobahn Country Club just a couple of weeks ago as we ventured out to Chicagoland and Autobahn Country Club's South Course, where we race with the GRIDLIFE Rush Series, the GRIDLIFE GT Series, as well as IBOC GLTC, and had a little bit of drift going on there as well. Track Battle Championship continued as we battled over and over on about a 2.2 mile course there as well. Saw a number of track records reset there in the Rush Series. It was Bryce Mersberger that dominated the weekend. In GRIDLIFE GT, it was all out front, also up front battling for most of the weekend. And in IBOC GLTC, the story was all Andy Smedegaard and Eric Catil, those two back and forth so many times. And Jacob, that set up Eric Catil to take the championship lead in IBOC GLTC, but his rival, Matan Rosenberg, is here this weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because of how far out of the way we are for a lot of these drivers. Some of them electing to stay home, some of them here trying to either regain a lead, fight for that lead, or just try to continue it out. So be interesting how this either finishes some series or sets up for the final races of the year.
Coming into WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. So as far as the points there, it's all Ryan Leach out in front. He won the first 12 races of the year, then went back and forth for a couple rounds with Blair Hosey and a couple of wins from James French, a driver who has experience running the 24 Hours of Daytona and some other famous races in the prototype challenge class in what was then the IMSA Sports Car
car series. Of course, Mersberger would have liked those wins to have counted for some season points, but he did pick up a trophy there after battling Jalen Batley all week long. So with the Autobahn highlights out of the way, in just a moment's time, we're going to head down to the racetrack for the GRIDLIFE Track Battle Championship. This is the second heat of the event weekend here, Jacob. We saw a couple track records broken already, but the track is getting warmer as the temperature climbs.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if or how the offset becomes with warmer track temps but more experience. Does that equate to us still dropping some of those lap times down? Is it more of a practice run? Is this more of a let's check the setup, see what things are going to be like, but potentially for the sprint? Is this the conditions that I'm going to be running in? So now we can try and check some other things, make sure the car is running well, making sure the temps are going to be stable all the way through. So it will be interesting. I have a feeling we'll probably get a couple more track records done. Will it be the same drop that we saw this morning? Maybe not, but now it comes down to that driver pedigree of who can adapt to it quicker, because temps are up a little bit and intake temps are up a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see how it ends up playing out.
Yeah, certainly. And of course, we mentioned the battle between Eric Catil and Andy Smedegard and Ibach GLTC. Again, we've got no practice coverage today. We're getting geared up for qualifying in the races tomorrow and Sunday. But Eric Catil dominated, took the championship lead, and we'll get to see his rival battle tomorrow when Matan Rosenberg goes up against a whole bunch of California locals. So looking at the sights and sounds from around here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, Group D for GRIDLIFE Track Battle Time Attack upcoming. And now that we've had a session or two under our belts here, we now have reshuffled the deck a little bit. We're now sorted by the lap times that drivers ran this morning. I don't know if it's fully representative because a couple drivers didn't really get times, including Cole Powelson and Cody Bulkley, another driver that we have to talk about running a Corvette this weekend. Those are Group A drivers, though. In Group D, primarily going to be our Club SC category drivers, including Sam Dooling, who reset the Club SC record at a 149.856.
Yeah, and for Club SC, it was super interesting to see how tight some of the timings were all the way through, and a lot of those drivers, having their first time out on this track in real life, a lot of them adapting and doing some work in sim, but it becomes that classic, Fit versus Corolla versus Civic battle once again that we've known Club SC just to more or less become.
Yeah, so they're on course now, heading up around for their warm-up laps, and the Club SC category is running on a spec Falcon RT 660 Plus tire. Of course, you can run the slightly older Falcon RT 660, but most of the drivers at the pointy end are on that Plus Edition rubber, and you're limited to a 205 width, Jacob. So it's not going to take very long to get those things up to temperature, and once you do get them up to temp, you're going to get a couple of good laps out of them before you start to get them hot. So Sam Dooling going up against Mike Jansen, his championship rival. I don't know that there's much of a mathematical chance for Dooling to beat Jansen, but they're going to be going head-to-head all weekend long here.
Yeah, it would be tough. I mean, we got a 13-point split at this point, so mathematically, I believe it's still there. It's just whether or not someone's going to have that ultimate weekend. So Sam Dooling needs everything to go completely right, and nobody wants to hope that their competitor has a bad weekend. But if it happened to Mike Jansen, I'm sure Sam wouldn't be all that upset about it, to see where he's able to jockey back up and potentially take over that first spot. So yeah, I mean, GRIDLIFE, the SC class right now is looking pretty tight, and there's a lot on the line for these drivers, and a lot of new faces as well coming in, which is great. And hopefully we can convince a few of these West Coast people to make the trek over to the East Coast and see them on that side.
Yeah, so on the front straightaway here, a number of drivers that we're going to be keeping our eye on, primarily the 370, the silver Honda Fit that's in view. That is going to be one of the drivers to follow. And again, a 149.8, I think, is what we were chasing, or 149.4, I believe, on the track record. So that's going to get reset probably more times here this weekend as the laps.
Yeah, so more and more drivers starting to make their way through the line and start to get potentially some lap times on the board here. So as the times start to fall, we will keep you in the loop. But as Kyle alluded to a little bit earlier on, pretty much a full class of Club SC. Really interesting. Ooh. Really interesting. Oh, we got a drop there?
That was Dooling off course there at turn 3. Just dropped the tires on the left and went 4 tires off. So we should talk about that a little bit. We mentioned track limits earlier. The outer white line, where there is white lines present, those are your track limits. Now, obviously, if you're 4 tires in the dirt, that's an invalid lap. The other thing that Sam Dooling will be required to do now is come to pit lane and we do what's called a self-report. You need to say, hey, I went 4 tires off, and they say, okay. They check your car for any sort of debris that's stuck underneath your car or in your grills, and then you can go back out. Critically, though, your lap time stops being counted until you do that, and the lap that you were on is deleted. So, again, if you go off course, you have to come back down pit lane, and in a car that takes 2.5 minutes to warm up, it's going to cost him some time here here in this session.
Yeah, and for Sam, this is kind of do or die. He really needs this session in. He needs to get these times down. So a mistake like that in a really strange part of the track as well. You wouldn't expect something like that to be going on between 3 and 4. I don't know if it was just a missed pass opportunity or miscommunication with a wave by, but yeah, either way, going 4 wide or four deep off the track and try to get through that pit lane stop as quickly as possible to get back out there and get a time on the board.
Yeah, and so Dooling is following, I think, Mike Jansen now through turn 11 and coming back around to the start. You see, again, the famous corkscrew here, a 4-story drop. We talk about it a ton. That is about a 45-mile-an-hour corner on a car with grippy tires. Not a lot of downforce to speak of there because, A, you're going too slow for that to be effective, and B, you're dropping off a cliff, so you really lose your mechanical grip as well.
Yeah, and I mean, really with this class, it's going to be tough too because they're limited to just one-way adjustable suspension. So you're going to try and play with that as much as you possibly can to try and make that contact. But it's one of those, like, do you sacrifice the entire track setup just to have the corkscrew go to the best of your ability, especially in a series where it's very momentum-based?
So on track now, again, as we mentioned, Group 2, we're a couple minutes in. Look, we're 4 minutes and 50 seconds in and just getting our second lap completed. So that's, again, as you work up in speed, it takes a little while to get yourself around the racetrack for a warm-up. You don't have as much time to necessarily run consecutive laps. This Porsche came in a little bit slow down the front straightaway here.
Yeah, slightly concerning, and can take a look at our timing board. It looks like Dale Fredericks up top right now with a 1:48.822. That's in the Ford Fiesta, a car we talked about a little bit earlier on, and maybe we'll just talk our way into getting a few more of these out on track.
I'd like to think so. Every time we come off to the West Coast in California, we are treated to a wide variety of. Here's Mike Jansen, our championship leader in Falcon Club SC, and a 1:57.588. Very slow first lap here in this Honda Civic, but let's talk a little bit about this car and why it's been so good this year. There are modifiers for this front suspension setup that these cars have, because these are double wishbone cars, Jacob, and that is a big advantage for mechanical grip when you're dealing with a strut car like and I guess there's torsion beams in the rear of a Honda Fit as well, right? So this is a major advantage for Mike Jansen, but again, the rules sort of balance it back, although Sam Dooling has told me that he thinks he's still at a big disadvantage on the straight line here, but not as much straight at this.
Chance to talk about the amount of drag that a Honda Fit is going to receive coming down the straight line, but yeah, it just depends on the track, depends on the layout. You've got that one section where that's going to come into a big effect. It is a tall vehicle, whereas the Civic of Mike Jansen, a little bit more streamlined, little slipstream coming down, so should be able to do a little bit better through some of these quicker sections. And yeah, I mean, obviously doing quite well just with where he's sitting currently, and not too bad of a lap there, 1:52.512. So not terrible, but we'll see as those times potentially start to come down.
Yeah, and again, the times that we're chasing in the Falcon Club SC class was reset again, the track record by Sam Dooling this morning, and it was a 1:49, or was it 1:49? Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I know he hit a 1:51 earlier on in the day. I just want to make sure that 1:49 was kept all the way through.
Yeah, it was for Dooling. Just going back to pull up my results from earlier. Let's see here. It was a 1:59.446. So that's the time that we're chasing now. And here's a look a little bit deeper in the field. This is an interesting car to have in track battle. This is the number 107 of Owens. Is that an S15?
Yeah, I believe so. It should be. It gets a little, especially coming from my side of the world, where they like to change up the body styles to get different things. So we get a lot of S14.9.
Yep.
But I believe, and it's looking right-hand drive for sure.
Yeah.
That is a purebred S15.
Yeah, that's Chris Owens in a 1999 Nissan Silvia. So across the stripe there, that's in street class. Doesn't improve that. Oh, trouble for Courtney Ward, and that's the 393 Honda Fit, and she has made some very light contact with the wall. And if my eyes don't deceive me, that appears to be at the corkscrew, I think. Or is that, where else could that be?
Yeah, little.
No, that's at the exit of 6, I think, on the left.
Oh, okay. So maybe that goes back to what you were talking about, maybe catching a little bit of curb and bouncing that car around and shooting it a little bit wide. So looks like she is all good and able to back out. We'll see at least a localized yellow in that spot.
Yeah, again, I didn't really get a great view of where it was, but again, it's an easy spot to get things wrong. Turn 6 through the corkscrew, I think, is the most challenging part of this racetrack, as Bob Miller picks up to a 2-minute .092 this time around. Mike Jansen took another chunk out of his improvement, a 151.880 for the number 156 Honda Civic. And the Club SC category sort of stands for Club Slow Car, which we always sort of joke about, but they're anything but. When you get behind the wheel of one or you ride around one, the straight line speed isn't all that impressive. We'll see maybe 95 miles an hour, but, and I think I was right, at the exit of 6 on the left is where she was there. But the cornering, you just don't slow down, and so carrying minimum speed is really critical in those cars.
Yeah, it's one of those kind of avoiding as much braking as possible and just trying to hold the momentum. It doesn't have the power to be able to pull through a lot of the corners, so where you, in a lot of vehicles, you might try and dive in for a really hard brake through that area. You might just try and coast, shoot that corner a little bit wider just to keep the momentum going.
And Tom Halka also on track. We saw that number 7, the white Subaru, a little bit. He was up in Group C, I think, before, but didn't get a representative time. So the 107 is going to pit in. So looks like Chris Owens will return to the pit lane. Will not use the whole session, and that could be a temperature-related thing too, Jacob. Especially on a day like today, keeping temps cool is important.
Yeah, definitely could be. I mean, sitting in second right now through that best lap of just a hair over the 150 mark. So yeah, maybe just cool things off, and you never know. Pull in for a few minutes, and he's got what, 10 left on the clock, so might have just enough time to do that, cool it off, get back out, and have a flyer.
There's the 760 car of Clark. And
another JDM legend we've got out there.
Yeah, 1994 Toyota Supra, and it almost feels like a sin to have one of these things modified to this extent in TrackBattle trim, but there goes the Fiesta up the inside. That's Fredericks. And 94 Supra, let's talk a little bit about this. Feels maybe a little out of place on a road course, perhaps? We see these cars usually built for drift or for drag. Yeah,
definitely seems a little weird. They've got everything they need to be competitive out there, and of that that kind of big, let's say big 4 of that JDM era, the horsepower race between this, the NSX, the FDRX7, and then R34 Skyline. I mean, a lot of people line for the Supra. I do think when it comes to that all-around car, it might have that advantage. There's cars that are a little bit quicker around the track. You could argue the NSX, although lower power, or the FDRX7 might have a...
One of the poster cars of everyone's childhood.
Yes.
We have an event called Circuit Legends up at Lime Rock Park in Lakeville, Connecticut, an event that is supposed to celebrate the Japanese legends that we all grew up with as poster cars for us. We didn't grow up with the what was the crazy Countach Lamborghinis or anything like that.
Yeah, the Diablos and stuff like that. Yeah,
for us it was all the 90s JDM stuff, and cars like this almost belong in a showroom rather than on the racetrack, but you always love to see them out there actually making laps.
Yeah, I would say one of the most stunning cars ever built, and kind of simple in its form, but that's where the beauty comes from. So very few people out there can say that they really don't like it.
Again, designed for street legal vehicles that have extensive bolt-on mods and aero, and depending on the tire selection, your 200 tread wear, and depending on what tire size you're on, it can bump you up into street mod as well. So the car would not be at home in street if it has anything other than OEM aero on it. And street mod's a pretty competitive class.
Yeah, just going through it, taking a look at that, as I've kind of got all the different classes laid out in front of me. You're dealing with a couple of different Supras, including some of the new ones, as well as AMG GT. Like that's a tough one, but it depends on what you want to put into it. With the size of the tire that car just needs from factory, that's probably where that bump had come up from. But then you've got that question of, do I run potentially a strange-looking smaller tire to try and get me down a class, or do you just go all in and try and build out that Mark IV Supra as best as you possibly can?
So this Porsche treadwear tires in that category, which gives you a little bit more stick. And that is the Porsche Cayman of Ari Hanna in the 516 car. See just now 158.873, and that is still a couple seconds off of where Ari was in the first session of the day. Just looks like he's still getting comfortable with WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, especially in a car like this. I'd be nervous too the first couple sessions. And this is interesting. This is going to be our Scott Birdsall back out here again in the Super Unlimited Legends car, which I wasn't really expecting to see in this heat, but here he is.
Yeah, it looks like he struggled a little bit in that first session, and this is built off of what those sessions were, not what that could be. So that Legends car could be extraordinarily quick. I expect this time to probably come down a little bit, and I feel like, whoa, getting a little sketchy there. That is not a car you want to step out.
No, very short wheelbase and very skinny tires, and so you combine that with a little bit of aero, you'll gain some stability at high speed, but you see Birdsall there in the Super Unlimited car yet to lay down a time, so this will be a flying lap. We'll follow him through and see what he can do here at turn 5. Tips it in, high center of gravity as well. These are skinny, tall cars.
Yeah, very, very awkward car. Obviously, just enough room for one person and barely enough room, as we can see. It looks like Birdsall maybe even a little hunched over to get through that front windshield.
Just for reference, the door card, the stickers with the numbers, those are 15 inches tall. So just more than a foot, and it takes up almost the entire door of this this Legends card. So just have a look at it when it comes down the hill here, just how small this thing actually is with that 15-inch tall door card.
I mean, they're great to watch in circle track. They're absolutely incredible. It's some of the best circle track racing that you're going to see because of how wide they can go all the way through the track. You get 4 or 5 of these things wide coming around, turn 1, turn 2 on an oval course, and they're still going to hold up.
Difference to the Fiesta. You can almost put it in the trunk.
Yeah, Fiesta's not a big car,
no.
And it definitely dwarfs it in this case. This is wild.
Up onto the front stretch, this will be his one and only lap time in this heat. As the checkered flag is out, so Scott Birdsall will come across the stripe here, and it'll be a 148. Went away for a moment, but it should be a 148 that we saw, unless it's going to be disqualified. There it is, 148.305, and that is about a 1.5 second pickup from session 1 on the day for him.
That's not bad. Do you think that's going to jump him into a different session later on today?
Looks like the Group C cutoff point was around a mid 146, so okay. I think he'll need a little bit more to jump back to Group C. But it depends. I mean, if you're going to be around this area, I don't hate being at the pointy end of Group D just to get the clear track.
That's a good point. I mean, the upside is he can kind of pick whatever line he wants. Someone could be taking the apex, and they'll still find a way to squeeze through. So the one upside of having an absolutely tiny car.
Yeah, certainly. And here's a Honda S2000. There's a whole bunch of these cars here this weekend. And we see S2000s a lot in our Midwest routes as well, but not typically with the F20 or F22 engines that they would have come with.
Great sounding engine.
It is a great sounding engine, isn't it?
Bit more of an expensive one to maintain and really make a lot of power on, and it becomes that argument of, do you keep it as it is and try and get a bit more horsepower out of it, or do you go for that K24 swap where you can kind of just make whatever it is that you want to make and is reliable. If you want to go full billet block on a K24, you can do that. That's not a problem. So I don't know. The purist in me goes, you know what, keep it all the way it is, but the competitor in me goes, no, let's go with whatever's the fastest.
Yeah, and whatever's the cheapest to replace. If you're going to be using it a lot and you blow out one of those F20 motors, that's going to cost you a pretty penny. So
yeah.
K24 is a little easier to find. They were in more cars. The F20 and F22 were only sold in the S2000, so it makes them a little bit harder to get a hold of. There's a look at Robin Shute in the pit lane. He's getting set for his Group A run later. TJ Keon in the Ford Crown Victoria. What is it? Why is it here? I love it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it, and he's up in Street GT, so kind of interesting there. Just a little bit more displacement that keeps him up into that sector, but still a very, very floaty car. As you can see, almost looks like he's taking someone for a tour of the track.
Yeah, and again, talking to Tom O'Gorman, who's our 2022 IBOC GLTC champion, he had a chance to drive one of these on snow tires at Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course and said it might have been the most fun he'd ever had on a racetrack. And he's a guy that's run TCR machinery at IMSA. He's run an S2000 in GLTC and basically everything else under the sun. And one of the most fun moments he ever had was in a Crown Vic.
I will argue there is nothing better than going far too fast and way too slow of a car.
Yeah, Panther bodies, I mean, reliable, and they got a big V8 that makes all the torque. Not a ton of power, and it's got a lot of weight to throw around as well.
Yeah, you'll see that weight being thrown around as he gets on the brakes there. Look at the front end dive going into this turn, into 5 up to 6, and yeah, it's interesting. But you know what? I'm sure it's an absolute blast to be in, and he might have the biggest smile on his face by the time this weekend's over.
Yeah, and again, I wonder how this thing slows down. I don't know what kind of brake package it has on it. I imagine he's got some decent pads to slow it down. It's not a lightweight car, but
ooh, getting a little skid coming through the corkscrew there, so breaking free a little bit. Reminds me of the Blues Brothers. It's got cop brakes, cop shocks, and maybe that's the version he's got stepping out just a little bit there. So, I mean, this is a driver that's using what most would consider a flaw of this vehicle, that very Bodie suspension, and trying to work with it and do the best he can with it.
Yeah, and you look at any movie from the mid to late 1990s up to, what, 2012, really. And this is just Americana.
Yeah.
It's a New York City taxi. It's a cop car. I mean, it's everything in between. You know, I think it's, or, you know, took you into cuffs when you were somewhere where you weren't supposed to be, I suppose. But really cool to see them, this one, have a second life here as a track battle car, of all things.
Yeah, I would argue if you were born, let's say 1980 or before that, you can recognize those lights in your rear view mirror, and they made your heart skip just a little bit of a beat. So maybe that's the intimidation factor for the rest of these drivers. You get up behind them and hope that they're old enough to remember when those were cop cars and standard issue. So that'll be our session there for Group D, and bump things up into Group C already. We're flying through it.
Yeah, the pickup from Group D to C is pretty significant as far as lap times are concerned. One of the cars that's in this field, it's the number 909. It's a gray BMW M4, and that is Mark Kilgore, one of the drivers. You see that the checkers on the rear bumper there. That's one of our drivers that has made the trip all the way out here, and he is involved in the top 5 in the Street GT Championship. And Mark Kilgore, he sent me a message earlier that they had some issues to resolve after putting the car back together. They had to bleed the brakes, and they were hoping that they also found a coolant issue and got that resolved. So, and he also had a little bit of an incident at Lime Rock Park where he kind of knocked the right front suspension against the wall. So still working up to pace here, and in Group C, I think we'll see that M4 claw its way forward and be a contender in Street GT by the end of the weekend.
Yeah, he's had great results already this season. I mean, CMP, probably the best round that he's got. Road Atlanta, not too bad. Road America, not too bad either. So pretty consistent throughout, and just has to carry that consistency. And that's a lot of it when you get into a multi-round series. You know, you can have 1 or 2 great events, but if you don't have the consistency through the series, I mean, that's why, you know, right now he's sitting in 5th. So.
Yep, and there's also Jessica Powers out there in the gray C5. We saw her a little bit earlier today as well. So stepping up the horsepower quite a bit, and you're going to see your class splits here. It's going to shift around a little bit, but Alexis Fragoso in that Acura RSX we saw earlier, Ramirez in the 242, that's a Club TR car, and green flag is out. There's Powers in the gray C5 Corvette. Great looking bodywork on this machine. And she and husband Josh out here in 2 Corvettes. Josh is in a blue one. Don't remember seeing Josh much earlier in the day.
No, I don't. At least it's not ringing a bell. So if he did get that session in, it may not have been the one that he was hoping for.
Yeah, I don't even see him on the list. So
okay.
Either way, Jessica working around in front of, is that M2 right behind her there?
I believe so. So that could be Leos Richmond.
I think you're right about that.
Yeah, 2020 BMW M2. Yeah, it's a great looking Corvette. I don't know if that's quite a Nardo gray, but if it's not, it's very close.
Similar,
Battleship gray, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think Larry Chen is at the back of the shot here as well in that gray, red, and silver number 490 Street Mod GR86. I think that car is probably classed a little bit higher than it could be. It could run in Falcon Club TR, but the tires and the mods he's got done to it as far as aero, I think put him a little bit outside of the Club TR category. So he's fighting an uphill battle in his class. See him there heading down the hill behind Jessica Powers.
Yeah, but I mean, why not? He's also getting a little bit extra practice with the camera car in the drift session.
Yep.
So, you know, we'll say it evens the playing field because he's getting a little bit more track time than some of these other competitors are.
I would challenge him to bring out the Supra Ford track battle and put the camera on the front and chase someone in time attack.
That would be interesting. That would be interesting. I would love to see that, or just let it roll and maybe run a full wheel-to-wheel series and show us what it's really like with those cameras up front. So let's see what it looks. See Jessica's time. See if they get that populated up.
And Powers at a 145.854. Richmond Leos in that M2 up to 3rd in Street GT. Ben Sirik jumps up to 5th place in the 83 car. There's Powers right now, and track mod records to chase. Callan Spence reset it earlier. We didn't catch that record earlier, 128.555, but wow. Front drive and all-wheel drive still yet to fall. I don't know how many all-wheel drive cars we have in track mod this weekend.
Ooh, that's a good question. Take a look and see if I can figure that out. I don't think it's many. I don't know if it's any.
I think you might be right.
Yeah, I'm not seeing any that are popping up here, unless there's a few that change classes a little bit later on, but...
There's a car. I don't even have a number board on that car, which is... That was a big pop and crackle.
got to pay extra for that tune. So yeah, a lot of competitors coming in just for this event. So Kyle and I are both on an even playing field with a pretty long list of this roster, but it's good though, and hopefully we end this event can maybe convince a few of these drivers to make that trip out east, get into a few other rounds, and all it takes is to be competitive at one event, and that's when you get the itch and start figuring out how much time off you've got going into next year.
Yeah, I'm going to slap this guy on the wrist. No numbers and no banner. That's a big no-no for track battle, so he'll end up probably not even getting time scored. That means he was probably late to registration.
Could be.
So, yeah, that's a no-go there. Mark Kilgore, by the way, 1:39.051 in the Street GT M4. And that's a pretty solid start after a bit of a slower time earlier. He's only about 4 seconds off, make that 5 seconds off of the track record. And this is only Heat 2, so it's still some time. Jessica Power's been a big pickup there as well in track mod rear-wheel drive.
Yeah, that's sitting up now 1:43.043. So, yeah, definitely a big pickup there. A little bit of room for improvement, I would say, on those runs, but obviously getting the times to start come down as we see another track mod. Hattori dropping a bit more time, 1:44.403, so getting a little bit closer to Jessica. Everybody kind of in that section, at least within this run group right now, pretty tight, within a few tenths.
Yeah, so headed up the backstretch towards turn 5, and see Larry Chen chasing right now. The car just ahead of him there is a first-generation Scion FRS. That's the 786 of Laguerzi behind the wheel of that FRS. A little point by there to Larry in the GR86.
Bit of a double point by, let Larry unleash and try and get a little bit of fresh air. They're carrying a bunch of speed coming through 5 and 6.
Yeah,
so
a lot of confidence there in that car for sure.
Yeah. I mean, a great car to be confident in, all things considered. See how he's able to handle coming into that tight apex, the first part of the corkscrew. Doing a good job. Car staying nice and flat, and he gets on the power nice and early coming through. That's a confident corner for Larry Chen.
It sure is, and trying to look back at what his lap time was from earlier in the day. I don't think that he had a really representative time of 1:46.525. So we'll keep our eye on Larry to see what he can do.
Yeah, he should be able to bring that. He should be able to bring that down. So see, yeah, one previous lap time, 1:41.992 coming up on our graphics there. So
that's significantly quicker than he ran earlier. Let's see what he does this time across the stripe. And currently leading in street mod of the cars that have run so far, and that time of 1:42.839, so a little bit slower that time, but he's absolutely working up to pace here.
Well, I think getting caught up in a little bit of that traffic, got a pretty early point by on it, but maybe a bit more of a delay. So we'll see if he gets another fresh air run all the way through. I can see that 141 coming down to at least flat, maybe scraping the top end of 140 by the end of this session, but we'll see. That's some tough work to do, but got the time in it right now. We're seeing a bunch of time starting to shift around now. Leo's sitting in third, 1:45.273. So things are moving around pretty quick here. Drivers finding the time and finding the pace.
Look at this Corvette, this 427. That's Damon Hattori in, is that a C3 Chevrolet Corvette?
I believe so.
The C3 or C4? My Corvette generations are.
Yeah, you know what? Whatever we say, we're going to be wrong on that. So beautiful car either way, beautiful Corvette.
I think C3 was right.
I think so.
My gut was correct. So Damon Hattori, this is a car that you don't really see a lot in time attack action. I'm sure that there's a ton done to the suspension under the fenders of this car. Got a nice rear wing on the back, mounted with some uprights from the rear bumper, because there's not really much trunk to attach it to.
No, not really. So having to pick the placement where they can and running the rocker.
Oh, it's a C2.
C2.
Thank you.
Wow.
Chad has corrected me immediately. I was off by almost 2 generations, Jacob. How could I?
It happens.
We see a lot of C5s and 6s and 7s and 8s, so
yeah,
it's rare that you see a car of that vintage.
I want to come out and say Stingray Edition, but it's tough to say. I don't know this generation well enough to be like, there's something to do with the swoop back of the rear glass that'll like define what is and what isn't the Stingray Edition of that. But once again, that's why we got a beautiful chat here to let us know. Would have been just born and my mom not quite. So yeah. There you go.
Back up onto the front straightaway. Is this Richmond Leos in that 336 again here?
I believe so. So we'll see if he's able to bump up his time, sitting at a 1:45.273 right now.
Yeah, it is that Leos car.
And
no pickup there.
No improvement. So have to tidy things up a little bit in that Street GT class. Pretty tight though to get down there.
Yeah, the other car to keep an eye on is Will Dries, the blue number 466 Hyundai Elantra N. Now he's important for the Street Class Championship. He competed and won at Thunder Hill last year, which is round 0 of our championship. That was last year, but counted for this season's championship. He had 25 points there and finished 6th at Carolina Motorsports Park, 3rd at Road Atlanta, 5th at Midwest, 5th at Mid-Ohio, 4th at Road America, and 7th at Audubon Country Club. He's tied for 3rd in the standings right now, and if he has a good round here, that could vault him into a pretty good spot where Mike Coons would have to perform very well at pit race to beat him for that podium trophy.
Yeah, it's an incredibly consistent season, all things considered. So, and even with that consistency, only putting him up in 3rd, so it shows you just how tight that class is.
And Will Drees in that Elantra and had another chassis that they actually crashed at Road America, completely wrote off. So they have another car, building it basically to the same modifications that they had before, but they had a lot of time figuring the thing out at Audubon Country Club. Wasn't quite running as well as they would have hoped. So this is a catch-up round for them, and hopefully going to put some points away that Mike Coons can't while he's not here this week. Here's a 370Z Nissan, another popular car here. That's Ben Sirik, who has some different colored body panels on this machine. Last time I saw it, it was all white, so I'm not sure if he's put some carbon bits on it. In Street Class, you can replace a couple different body panels with non-OEM materials as long as they're the same or very largely similar to OEM body components.
Oh, interesting. So yeah, probably not too much of a bit of a weight advantage there, but not much on the aero side of things.
Exactly. So OEM aero only. That is an improvement up to 4th place.
Yeah, that bit of carbon fiber making all the difference.
Yeah, but he hasn't quite gone faster yet than his lap time from earlier in the day. So that's interesting to note that we're still maybe a little off for some of the drivers based on maybe the track temperature coming up. But there's a good look at the 871 of Carlton in that Chevrolet Camaro. I noticed that we have a handful of Camaros this weekend in a car that's typically, I don't want to say rare, but Christopher Carlton in a 2017 Chevrolet Camaro. You see a lot more Corvettes in the Midwest. I'm not sure why Camaro versus Corvette here, but there's a couple of these running this weekend, not only in Street GT and higher, but also in our GRIDLIFE GT Championship.
Yeah, not sure what brings them a little bit more predominantly West Coast side of things. I mean, all things considered, engine package very similar between it, drivetrain a little bit different, Camaro being a bit more front heavy and not quite the same balance, and just overall a bigger car. So not entirely sure, maybe not as competitive as the Corvette, but either way, I'll take any chassis I can get at this point in time, and seeing something different is always nice.
So 141.411 for Christopher Carlton. And I don't know that, did we see him earlier? I don't recall seeing that car on track. And he did run a lap earlier, but only a 2:09.9. So these are his first representative laps of the day.
Okay, so just a bit of a shakedown earlier in our session first thing this morning.
Yep, and they're all chasing a 1:33.239. That was Andy Vogel's time from last year in a C8 Corvette. So about 5 more seconds required to get there, as I mentioned with Mark Kilgore in that M4.
Now with something like that, looking at that time, I don't know if you remember that lap, but is that one of those perfect scenarios where Andy's sitting on clear air, car's all good, first thing in the morning, kind of everything lines up, or do you think there's a little bit more to play there to potentially get that record beaten by the end of this weekend?
I think in Street GT, again, a class that has had a lot of take. Again, effectively Street Class rules with a slightly higher MSRP limit, and this is really where your 6, 8, and 10-cylinder engines are going to play, where in Street Class you're going to see mostly 4-cylinder turbo stuff.
This split, if I remember correctly, came about because of the dominance of the Corvette, right?
Yes.
There was a lot of conversations. I've spent a little bit of time in a very notorious Facebook group to keep up on the history that is GRIDLIFE, but I remember that being a big conversation. So,
that seems the Corvette conversation seems to be a thing in every category, doesn't it? Whether it's GLTC, track mod.
It's just an incredible vehicle that checks so many boxes and is at a really great price range. I don't know if Chevrolet is if that's their loss leader, if they're losing money on those to sell other things or just breaking even, but either way, it's a great marketing tool for the brand.
It is, and it looks like Carlton picked up a little bit, 140.723, so now within 2 seconds of Mark Kilgore. Remember that the goal here in all these heats up until Sunday morning is to just get to top 5 in your class of your overall best times of the weekend. That's all you're trying to do, because if you don't get to the top 5, you won't get to participate for the Track Battle Podium Sprint. There's the delta between Kilgore and Carlton, 1.89 0.99 seconds for Carlton to make up to get on top in Street GT.
Yeah, that's it's definitely possible. It's a bit of work. It's one of those scenarios where everything is just lining up. Car feels great. You know, maybe running a lower fuel lap on something like that. You've got all the fresh air in the world. So we'll see. I don't know if you'll be able to close that gap up by the end of the day, but definitely something to look forward to for the early broadcast tomorrow morning.
So here comes one of our GR Supras, another incredibly popular car. That's Lee in the 507, which Street Mod Supra seems to be a pretty popular combination as well. It's Jaden Lee behind the wheel. Up in third so far, and again, as we work our way through the sessions, we're going to see these cars probably get knocked down the step a little bit. But interesting to note that a Hyundai Elantra N, after half of our track battle cars have gone, a Hyundai Elantra N is the fastest car on track so far.
Yeah, I can see it. A very, very well balanced car. I mean, what Hyundai has been trying to push towards is back to that fast roots. Like let's do something awesome. It'd be cool to see them maybe come out with a great rear-wheel drive vehicle. Let's do something that's kind of neat again and get back to it. But a lot of the times they'll develop these chassis in something more economical and then take that technology and all of that attrition they put in and then develop something new. So maybe we're a couple years out from another generation of rear-wheel drive Hyundais.
Jared Ramirez in the 242. This is a Toyota GR86. Looks like he's going to take full advantage of the last lap there. I think that's Lelouch V behind him in that GR Supra with the carbon hood. We've seen Lelouch, I think, most recently at Autobahn Country Club. See if V can pick up from a 139.713. The answer to that is no, and it looks like Ramirez will also not pick up. Ramirez is leading in Falcon Club TR thus far, so good lap there for the Toyota GR86.
Yeah, great lap for sure, and we'll see how they end up playing out for, I mean, their session right now is wrapped up. We've got one more left today. Interesting to see, as I was looking at the weather earlier on, that temp's going to drop very quick tonight. I don't know if it's going to come down enough before their last session, which I think is at 3:40, in and around that time frame. So it'll be down a little bit, but the other part too is some of the visibility stuff. Is you know, the sun drops really quick here, and first thing in the morning we had a lot of glare, so those are all things that play into this, as well as where the light's sitting on track and what you're able to see.
It's a great point, and of course the marine layer as well in the morning if we do get to run, but there's fog, you know, generally over the racetrack. That'll keep the sun off the pavement and will kind of delay the heating up of the racetrack. It'll hold heat longer than you know, longer in the afternoon, so it'll take longer to cool off than it will to warm up, certainly. So there's cars rolling back around to complete this second heat for the Group C group, and then Group B will be next, and we got a really eclectic mix of cars coming up next. It looks like some of our Super Unlimited cars have filtered to the front or closer to the front of A. So we had most of our Super Unlimited cars in B last time. Looks like they've kind of split the difference between those top two groups. But a lot of Street Mod, Street GT, and the very pointy end, only one Club TR car coming up next. That'll be Mario Moroni, who we mentioned is our championship leader. It's
a little bit of a flex for everybody else when you can say that, like, I'm a TR car and get in a bit more laps and just try and extend that lead.
Next group, Group B, on course just after this. We'll be right back.
For cars new and old, whether it's your first car or you've had a few in your day, their parts live a hard and sometimes short life. You then have a choice to make. Hope it works or know it works. At FCP Euro, we've been helping enthusiasts fix, maintain, and upgrade their cars with quality European car parts and hand-curated service kits since 1986.
When we modify our cars, we do it to feel a greater connection, more responsive feel between ourselves and the road.
Welcome back to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca and GridLife's Track Battle Championship, heat number 2. The drone through the bridge. Max is crushing it for the Prime team right now. That was unbelievable. Heat 2 is on course with Group B. This is our second fastest group as we work our way faster and faster throughout this afternoon session. Kyle Heyer joined up here by Jacob Gettens, and Jacob, we're going to see cars pick up the speed quite a bit here as we work our way through this next session. We saw some records set earlier, primarily street mod and street class cars kind kind of mixed in here, but there's some super unlimited cars out there. We mentioned the big time car out there with Jeremiah Burton and a handful of others. Danny Aitken will be in this session as well. But Mario Moroni, our Falcon Club TR Series leader, is on track trying to break the Club TR record again.
Yeah, what an eclectic mix we've got on circuit at this point in time, and be running in unlimited, but deciding to run in something a little bit different, or run with their friends and do something as a group, as a team effort, and compete that way. So super unlimited, amazing group, but yeah, unlimited also pretty wild. Unlimited is going to be those street style vehicles, something you could actually more or less buy and modify. Whereas when we get into the super unlimited, that's pretty much race car territory only.
Danny Aitken again in the super unlimited Chevy. We're wing headed up to the turn 6 area earlier, which I talked about in our track preview, the super high compression, high downforce corner that leads you up towards the corkscrew. And Scott Berg's always saw in super unlimited earlier, and this super unlimited fight's going to be fun because
change things up, or maybe just my vision's getting a little bit better, but the car looks a touch more aggressive, something, but it looks like that team is trying.
Tire marks there, throttling up, and that's V8 horsepower and no TC at play there.
Yeah, look at how much that front end is rising on throttle though. So yeah, I'm not entirely sure on the setup with that. Once again, if that was a drift car, I'd tell you exactly what they did to find it, but either way, pretty noticeable, and still looking for more grip in the rear before it came out of that first one. So interesting to see if this gets a little bit more sketchy, or if that maybe free
kind of car has got to be a lot of fun around here. He's got Torres right behind him in that golden red GR Supra, and trouble for the 408. That is one of our street mod competitors. That's Carlo Uribe in the Chevrolet Corvette, and that's again off at I think the inside of turn 6 on corner exit, and that's put him kind of in a compromising position here. And we'll see if he can get it refired, but had yet to put down a lap time. So he's either on his first flyer or his out lap. You see, this is again the exit at turn 6, that super fast corner. You can see all the tire marks. Half of them lead to the right, half of them lead to the left. It depends on how you mess it up there.
Yeah. So what do you think in this case, or that scenario would have caused something like that? Just catching the rumble strip and getting a little disgruntled?
Yeah. So I talked about the big curb there on the inside. You'll see here the big yellow anti-cut curb. If you hit that, it'll send you for a loop. And if you track out too wide and you catch the gravel with the right rear tire, that's another way that you can find yourself off course. There's a number of ways to get it wrong, as now we're going to see a full course yellow on track as well. So, you know, it's a high compression area, so as soon as the car kind of bottoms out, the car's going to gain a bunch of grip all at once. And if you are sideways and you put a little counter steer in it, all of a sudden you're shooting off to the right. Or if you go in there a little sideways, it catches a bunch of grip and the rear kind of just wants to be the front. A number of ways to mess it up, and we see that's really a high trouble spot area here at this racetrack.
Well, even bottoming out, like if you're hitting the bump stops all the way at the end of the stroke of the suspension, that can create it too, because now you've lost all mechanical grip at that point. So you're going to go from a very high grip. If you bottom that car out, now you're going to go to a zero grip situation, and depending on when you're picking up that throttle, if you're still in that zero grip situation, that back end can step out pretty quick, especially in those Corvettes. They're very well balanced, but the downside of that is when they decide to get a little crazy, they get really crazy really quick.
Yeah, and actually, you know, I had chatted with Hans Horpedal, who's one of our GridLife GT competitors, and he's got a C5 Corvette, and he had an issue with his rear wing, so he removed it, and he was talking about how slippery his car is without that rear downforce. And that car did have a wing, but the C5 Corvette is an incredibly you know, slippery vehicle for the air, but when you don't have downforce, they are wild to drive, and even with a little aero, they can get out of hand pretty quickly.
Yeah, I can see that.
I think that car in shot, I think it's the green one, if I'm not wrong, if that's the 170, that's Tom Tang. And now Tom Tang, I don't know if it's this exact car, if it's got a new livery. I imagine it is the same car, but this is another vehicle that's run the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb, and we see it out here with that livery on this car. Looks fantastic with Toyo tires on the side, one of our partners here at GridLife. So good to see him lined up behind the safety car now as the field rolls behind the Elantra N, and they're going to go get a flatbed dispatched for that number 408.
Yeah, hopefully that's just a pull out of the gravel as opposed to a full mount on the back of that flatbed, but we'll find out here shortly as the pace car coming around. As you said, something a little bit different, having that pace car, stacking these drivers back up again, not something you normally see in what you might consider traditional time attack.
Yeah, and I think the reason for it is you can really save a lot of time because you don't have to have a full outlap to kind of get everything back up the temp, and you don't have to have the car sitting on pit lane, heat soaking. You can keep air moving through the radiators. It really is a better way to be time efficient. And we've saved a lot of track time with this strategy, though, again, there is no requirement that you bunch up behind the car ahead of you. So some of the drivers that know this procedure well, you can see the Civic at the back of the shot, they're not bunching up. That is okay. Now, when we get to our race groups tomorrow, if you have a full course yellow, you must bunch up. That is part of the full course yellow procedure. That's really the only difference. And again, we should only get one more lap, but we should get back under green.
Yeah, see a few cars just, I mean, as these ones were coming through 9, a few of them still sitting back in 4 and 5, so maybe opting to have that spacing, maybe create their own free air for a good run. So try to, separate that out, whereas this group now caught up more or less in that pack, and could be interesting if you got someone in front of you that's a little bit quicker. It's a good spot to be in. If they're a little bit slower, you're going to be looking for that wave by or try to make that pass as soon as you possibly can to find a more advantageous position on track.
9:23 on track as the quickest car of the session so far, and that is Mike Reyes in a GR Supra, and just behind him in Street Mod is Opie Oladipo in a Chevrolet Corvette, and I think that 234, and that must be the leading car, I believe, the red one out in front. Still getting myself associated with numbers and stickers on the sides of these cars, with the vast majority of these drivers new to Grid Life or new just for this event. So a lot of learning for everybody on track and off.
Yeah, it's a big one. That 408 Corvette is going to be getting the flatbed tow, but hopefully that means we only get one more lap under yellow. That tow truck able to drive off. One of the best parts and worst parts about this track is we've got this gigantic hill in the middle of it, or but 2 hills in the middle of it. Now, the downside is that doesn't mean there's a lot of spots for these service vehicles to be able to drive off or get to the other side of the track. Most of the time they've got to complete the lap. We don't want them driving upstream by any means, but it's an incredible facility, and being able to have some of the turns and vistas that we do have, the downside with it is it's a little bit tough to navigate. Even just driving to the pits from here is about a 5-minute drive because there's no quick way to get in there.
Yeah, it's a spectacular racetrack, but with it comes a little bit of a limitation. The other thing is, why would you flatbed a car versus just flat towing it if they think there could be fluids leaking, or there's a suspension part broken and the car can't roll very effectively, or without dirtying the racetrack, they'll put it on the flatbed, kind of contain all the mess if there is one. And if the car can't roll, the tow truck can. So you put it on the flatbed and bring it back to the pits.
And sometimes it's just faster, right? You can just, for the extra 30 seconds, minute it takes to get that thing up on the flatbed, they can drive a little bit quicker than having a flat tow a vehicle.
A couple other cars in this shot. There's another one of those Porsche Caymans. A lot of BMW machinery here this weekend. There's the 168 of Joe in the green BMW. That's such a pretty car. That's Hao Zhou in the BMW M4. Best time of the weekend, a 1:35.953. No pickup yet. Pretty early in the session here.
Yeah, I love, we talk about the liveries and the paint colors, just go wild. I mean, I can't say much, I wear all black all day, but yeah, when it comes to vehicles, just go wild, go, have fun with it. It's your race car, it's the most egregious version.
This shining white paint, and it looked perfect. I said, when did you paint this car? He goes, about 5 years ago. I said, how does it look that good? He goes, oh, I painted it with aircraft paint.
Oh, I believe that, yeah.
And what a genius idea. Yeah, it's heavier, but if you're trying to have paint that stands up to the abusive on track, I mean, that's pretty solid. But green flag, I think, is back out. The safety car going to dive to pit lane, and they'll get maybe 2 more laps here before we have to relinquish the track to the Group A cars.
Should be just enough time. Hopefully you've got the temp into the car. You might be able to get that one flyer right off the bat. If not, potentially be able to get it across the line before the flag goes. And we're already seeing a bit of a battle here.
Yeah, Blue Cayman is Uni Jai in the 390. And I talked to Uni last night. She was really excited to be here in a very pretty Porsche Cayman. You talked about liveries that are great. That sort of sun yellow and sky blue combination is absolutely spectacular looking. And there's Uni right now. Was at the very pointy end of the safety car paced group. There she is. Best lap of the session is a 1:40, and she did a 38.3 in the previous session, so that's not bad for a street GT class car. She's right up in the mix at the moment.
Yeah, showing third right now, so a bit more work to be done, but having a great spot there on that factory, fairly low, and I think that's something else. We talk about the different points of compression as well as the rumble strips here. If you got a pretty car, there's a good chance it's taking a little bit of underside damage by the time this weekend's done.
Yeah, so you see that big yellow pyramid on the inside apex of the corkscrew. That thing is nasty.
Yeah.
Do not hit that. Although the red and whites here, the candy stripe curbs, are not super aggressive compared to a place like Road America. They're actually pretty mild, but those yellow anti-cut curbs, those will absolutely bend things, knock your alignment out. You're not really designed to hit those. That's why they're painted bright yellow, so you can see them.
Yeah.
But they're trying to prevent corner cuts and things like that. But to your point, yeah, these cars are low, very good handling race cars, and some of the older ones can be had for a very reasonable amount of money. Azmat Muhammad, by the way, that's a solid lap of 134.126. That is quicker than his time from the previous session, and isn't going to be leading track mod with that time, but that's a good jump up the order for the number 50 Z06 Corvette.
Yeah, also running in GLTC as well in the MR2, so getting a bit more track time in now, and I would say similar balance between the Corvette and the MR2, not exactly the same, but you know, at least close enough where you're able to have a similar balance between the two vehicles and get in as much practice as possible. But I like seeing that bit of a change up between those two. Nice fun weekend to be able to drive a Vet and an MR2 over this period of time.
Yeah, we didn't see that Callan Spence earlier. Callan Spence in the first session of the day ran a 128.555, and that you see that represented there on the track mod records. That beat last year's record holder Brad Perkins by about half a second, and that is a Lotus Elise. So we didn't get camera on that in Group A last time because we had, you know, a whole bunch of Pikes Peak cars.
Yeah, I mean, so far really getting a handle on that car over, I mean, on it as late as last night. So, but got everything sorted, and just a very unique car, very beautiful car to have out here. You know, anything different.
Yeah, Catfish Camaro, and
yeah.
to the top. Wow, look at that time of 131.089. That's a really fast lap, and that will go, I believe, not quite to the top of Super Unlimited, but that is pretty close to the top. I think Cody Voss-Schultz ran quicker than that, and we're certainly expecting Robin Schute to go quicker than that later this afternoon. He didn't get a representative lap earlier, but this is very solid for this car and this driver.
Yeah, very, very solid. I mean, there's really nobody that's brought a bigger weapon than Schute here this weekend, but I think it's one of those you're second, but you're first with an asterisk kind of thing. So we'll see. I mean, Jeremiah Burton really coming out swinging. It'll be interesting to see how he ends up stacking up in that Super Unlimited class. There's a few drivers that I think outside of the obvious in Robin, but it'll be an interesting battle for second and third.
Yeah. Here's Azmat Muhammad in that Corvette. That's the white car top of the screen there. Just ahead of Jeremiah, but Z06 Corvette from Azmat Muhammad, and here comes Burton again into the braking zone. Sort of a shallow line there into the corkscrew, but again, it's only about a 45-mile-an-hour corner. You got to wait for the front end to land before the steering will do much for you, as you sort of jump the front tires there a little bit, but leaving a little margin on the table at the exit of turn 9, Rainy Curve. Get a little more aggressive at turn 10.
Yeah, you have the ability, especially in that car, to use as much of the track as possible. I even noticed on the lap before that, coming out of 11, I kind of expect him to go even a bit wider. You're able to carry a lot of that speed through 10, so could potentially use almost all that run-up coming through 11 if he's got that comfortability in it. But we'll see. I mean, the car's got the power to be able to dig out of there. It's just try not to go over track limits.
And checker flag is out here for Group B, so the drivers that are on a fast lap will complete them now. Down the hill here, ooh, big slide there for the 668. And that's Chan in the BMW M2. That car, absolutely gorgeous. We mentioned the purple color on it, big, that's a favorite for us. But let's see here.
Yeah, great setup. I mean, the BMW platform, just period, is so competitive almost in anything that they want to run in.
Yeah, it's actually not listed as an M2, just listed as a 2 Series. Not sure if that is there such thing. Or is it just an M2? Again, I'm not a BMW guy, so I tell you everything you want to know about the 86. But Sky Chan, best time of the day so far was a 134.807. Did he improve on that? Not quite. And here's Muhammad down the corkscrew one final time here in this session. That flat plane crank V8 making a much different engine note than is typical for GM V8s, which for a long time were that classic push rod
just the
cross-plane crank.
Yeah, the LS platform in general, which is, I mean, incredible, but it is amazing how long they have just held on to that technology. And, you know, they've made updates over the years and made things a little bit better, but then coming through with this flat plane crank, just, I feel like it kind of came out of nowhere. We're like, oh, okay, but then now you understand the plan with all the rest of the racing that Chevrolet's doing.
Yeah, you don't get the revs with the cross-plane crank, so that was the idea with the flat plane crank, is you just get the extra revs out of the engine, a lot more like the European-style V8s that rev super, super high and are much smaller displacement, though I think the GM engineers have kept pretty sizable displacement regardless.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
America.
Well, just I mean, a little bit more balance in the rotating assembly, so you can push it that little bit harder. But yeah, maybe not as much of a rumble that that we're kind of used to out of a big American V8, but ultimately still sounding incredible and right on pace with you know, getting into the Ferrari, Lamborghini, and all those classes as well. So they don't feel very different when they're out there competing with them.
So Group A is lining up now for the last group of this track battle heat, the Heat 2 of the weekend. And in this group is Jackie Ding in that blue BMW M2. We're told that the purple car is an M2, although if it's not an M2, it would have been an M240i. But it's listed as just a 2 Series, and I know that we can select M2 in the vehicle selection, so I'm not sure if that was intentional or not.
It's a big menu. A lot of selections.
That's a great way to describe it.
It's just a big menu.
There's Cole Powelson. You see that green open wheel, crazy looking thing? That is a Striker, is the model of that Cole Powelson is running. And Cole is used to tinkering on lots of different things and had his own manufacturer for a while that I believe he's sold now and has moved on to this Striker platform. That he ran this car at the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb this year. And again, crazy looking super unlimited open wheel thing. You do not see cars like this often.
Yeah, it's got my mind a little bit twisted. I keep seeing almost like a Polaris side-by-side mixed with a dune buggy and then something out of, yeah, a Twisted Metal. Like it's quite the setup, but we'll see how it plays out here. Just seeing that car shake a little bit, finding the grip of the tires, it looks fairly soft. So I expect it to be pretty dynamic coming through this. And you can already tell just how much suspension range it's got built into it. So yeah, I don't have a ton of information on this, but really interested to find out a little bit more.
And just behind him is Joshua Briggs, all the way from across the country in that MX-5 right behind him. So that tan car is going to be in our unlimited class, and once again, once we split the ticker again, you're going to see super unlimited and unlimited. The difference between the two is super unlimited, you don't have to have any relation to a production vehicle, which means things like GT3 spec cars would fall into that category and kind of silhouette machine. But there's no silhouette like the Striker, so that's why it's in this super unlimited class.
No, it's definitely wild. So we'll see a little bit of hazy blue smoke coming out of the back, which is never a good sign, but fingers crossed. Let's just run a little bit rich through that section, and we'll see how this all plays out. And crazy to see some of the cars following it up with the Miata and the Porsche behind it. And yeah, it's quite the leak of vehicles we've got coming around the turn. We
see a black flag waving.
Yeah.
And again, I don't know what for, and I do see, oh, and that is off at the end of turn 2, and that is that Robin Shute?
I think it might be.
It might be. Wow, that's a big one.
That's a big hit.
And that, I think that is Robin Schute's Wolf, and that car is, you see the front wing is way over here, so it had a big off somewhere else before it got to that wall. So that's going to bring out a black flag, and that's a big one. Hope he's all right, but that would have been coming up over the crest at probably about 150 miles an hour.
It's the one downside with that style of car, that when we get into the open wheel, is when they bite back, really, really hard, and you're going at a speed where, you know, you're driving at the limit the entire time. Even just in warm-up, you're driving in a way that would scare a lot of other drivers. So not entirely sure if he was on a flyer or just got a little bit strange before the tires were warmed up. It's tough to tell right now, but we'll see if we can get a little bit more information on how that all occurred. But big thing right now, just making sure he's all right and gets out of the vehicle.
Yeah, I did see him moving okay, and that's the great thing about these cars that sort of start as factory race cars is you've got a lot of safety gear inside that car, fire suppression. You've got a pretty substantial roll cage and a carbon monocoque as well. So as far as all the cars to have an impact, you would like a little bit more body work around you because that car's pretty small, but those Wolves are pretty stout. And again, just trying to piece it all together, and once we get confirmation that he is out and all right, we hopefully can try to find a replay of it. But again, that was a big one down there.
Well, we kind of announced or cursed this a little bit earlier on, talking about how this is kind of his class to win, and then you have an incident like that. It opens the field up a little bit, although I don't think there's any competitor here or any driver or fan here that wants to see an incident. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll see if we're able to get a replay together on that one. But it seems like he's all right, and that's going to be the biggest thing. So hopefully get that car up onto a flatbed. I did notice the front right wheel pretty much detached completely from the vehicle. So that's a tough hit for sure.
Yeah, so it sounds like we also don't have an angle of it for replay as well. So we'll just let you know when we get confirmation that he's out and all right. But again, we saw him moving around. Tough break for Robin Shute, and that will almost certainly bring an end to the weekend, unfortunately. And that car has been on the Pikes Peak International Hill Climb a number of times, 4-time King of the Mountain. And it will not be King of Laguna Seca this weekend, unfortunately. Cody Vaschholz also on the timing and scoring in the same category, another Pikes Peak competitor. So is Scott Birdsall, Danny Aitken, and a number of others here this weekend, including Rob Dahm. But there you see, again, the front wing of that car. Look where that is on entry to turn one. I'm just trying to figure out how that wing ended up there and the rest of the car ended up where it did.
I'm wondering just, potentially a brake failure coming into it, going a bit off-roading and losing the wing, and then just hoping to aim it for the soft spot on the wall.
Yeah, I don't even see marks. That wing must have slid to where it is, but that's very odd. So.
Yeah, definitely a weird spot to be going off. But I mean, you're carrying a ton of speed if he was going into one, you coming through that straight. So
as we're going to be under yellow here for track battle heat number 2, and we're going to step away here for a minute while the safety crews are at work. We'll be back in just a few here from GRIDLIFE Laguna at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca.
These are my race treads for when the road ends.
These are my race treads for shredding the slopes.
These are my race treads for setting the hook.
Racetreads.com. Tires for every adventure.
Thousands of data points affect milliseconds on the track. You've got the data, but do you know how to use it? FireLapse is the driver development platform that makes data simple and actionable. And with FireLink, your sessions upload automatically and coaching insights show up instantly. Visualize clearly, share easily, improve every time you drive. Powered by machine learning and real driver data, FireLapse helps you train with purpose and race with confidence.
racetreads.com. Tires for every adventure.
It doesn't get much more super unlimited than this. Talk a little.
We bought this car about a month and a half ago, and it's a '99 Trans Am car that was converted into a GT1 car. So little wing difference and some wheels. Find out if it came. Let everyone know we got an old Dale Earnhardt motor in it, and it's just a lot of fun. Yeah, just trying to get used to the car, shake it down a little bit, see if it's got any issues. But so far so good.
We were talking before we went on air. You've been to Laguna Seca a couple times, but it's your first time here in this thing. What's it been like to try to wrangle this thing around?
Oh, it's great. This track's amazing. It's one of my favorite tracks, and it's nice to come here in a real race car and really kind of push it. And hopefully we'll get some clean air out there to do that and really test this thing out because I'm excited to see what it can do.
Still early in the weekend, but you've got a couple sessions under your belt. How's the car feeling?
Car's great. First session we went out on old tires that were about to be corded, but we were safe. Session we'll scrub a second set in, and then it's game on.
Well, one of the busiest guys on track this weekend is Larry Chen because you're pulling double duty. You're chasing in the Supra, the drift cars, and you're competing in the Ford.
This is such unbelievable. Unbelievable. Double duty, my favorite, being able to combine photos, video, my car, so I'm stoked on that.
Having to be adaptable, what's it like trying to keep up with the drift guys in this and then adapting technique-wise to competing and trying to set a fast time in the GR86?
It's very difficult. You know, this one is definitely underpowered, but for me, it's about practicing driving technique. When I get in this thing, it's an absolute rocket ship. I need all that power to keep up with these guys because, as you know, some of them have 1,200 horsepower.
It's a lot. I imagine driving and staying competitive through the corkscrew is one thing. It's a whole nother ball game when you've got this whole camera rig sitting in front of you. What's that like?
It's crazy because I have to pay attention to so many things, right? I have to pay attention to the edge of the track because oftentimes my view is blocked. So much going on, it's absolute chaos out there. In fact, last year, there's a great clip of a tire coming off and hitting the nose of my car.
Incredible. Hope that doesn't happen this weekend, but wishing you fast times and a lot of great shots. Thanks, Larry.
Well, here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, the Track Battle Q2 is complete, and of course, we'll be back live with more Track Battle and Drift action later today. So if you're here on YouTube, the next link will fire up around 3:40 later this afternoon. So check back with us for more coverage of the GRIDLIFE Track Battle Championship and Drift. Of course, all the wheel-to-wheel coverage will start tomorrow with qualifying for the GRIDLIFE GT and GRIDLIFE TC Championships, as well as the GRIDLIFE Rush Series. Jacob, final thoughts here on Heat 2 before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I'm just excited. I mean, the lap times didn't tumble like crazy, but as we get a little bit later in the day, I can expect that to happen. And it's been awesome learning about all these drivers, and now that feel a little bit more accustomed with everybody, should just get even better. And yeah, looking forward to it.
All right, Jacob, thanks so much. We'll be back later this afternoon with more coverage in about an hour and a half time. We'll see you here at about 3:40 Pacific time for Track Battle Heat 3. We'll see you then.